Hey there, Fellowship family. Welcome to your one-stop shop for all things church life. My name is Mark Francis, and I am once again your host for today. We've been engaged in these last few weeks of our podcast into a kind of a campaign that we're calling Prioritize the Body, and it's one of the 4 Ps that we launched in the 40th anniversary that the elders were just saying, this is where we think the church needs to be going. And prioritizing the body really relates to how can we be plugged into community? How can we utilize our gifts and talents? And if you've been looking at our website link over these last few weeks, clicking on Prioritize the Body, and you'll scroll down, you'll see a lot of different ministries, a lot of different activities. One of them is Pray for Shenandoah County. And we have a couple of visitors with us today from the Pastoral Staff. And I'm excited to have, to my right, to your left watching at home, Scott Santmier. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having us.
Good. And your role, your job title, if you call it that, is Pastor of?
Local Outreach.
Local Outreach.
Which really entails anything outside of the 4 walls of this building until we reach an overseas ministry.
Yeah. And you do a lot of things behind the scenes here at church. So first of all, thank you for that. And one of them is coming up, Follow the Star. That's probably one of the biggest
One of
outreach.
our biggest and most visible outreaches. Mm-hmm. And it's become a staple, so to speak, in the community. So it's this year will be a little different because of the COVID world we live in. It's actually going to be a drive-through.
Neat.
And it will be here on the campus of FBC.
Neat. That will be something to look forward to. A drive-through. Now, cookies will be available, I'm assuming, too.
Cookies will not be available. We will not be handing out anything between people and cars. And
that's probably smart.
So, we're trying to be as safe as possible in the world that we live in now.
Yep. And you're also connected with Fellowship Saturday, part of that.
Been part of Fellowship Saturday since its beginning. I've been the campus pastor for that, which gives me kind of a unique interaction with the people there. So I'm kind of the face that they see all the time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's super beneficial to have that consistent pastoral oversight who's there, who people can say, I just give Scott a call on that. And over here to my left, to your right watching at home, Don in Hartog. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. And I'll lead you into this. You're a pastor of?
Biblical Education here at Fellowship Bible Church. Yeah.
And so you are excited about a couple things, I'm sure. You're here to talk about Shenandoah County, which I'm curious of how you are involved with that. But before that, I've heard Mark Carey talking about football season. Now, he was lamenting not being able to watch his team. Your team is in the same boat, I believe.
Yes, we both are Big Ten fans. He's a Nebraska guy, and I'm an Iowa guy. We're right across the Missouri River from each other, and we don't like each other in football. Now, I love Mark Carey, but on that one Saturday a month or a year, we are on opposite ends.
But so there's actually a season happening, right?
There is, yeah. The Big Ten is finally going to kick in now and have 8 games. And
it's exciting for all
better
you
than
Big
nothing.
Ten people. Yeah, absolutely. Some of us who already have our football teams playing, we're already, sad, So you have the hope.
We haven't experienced a loss yet.
Yes, you have 0 losses.
It's coming.
Well, thanks for being here. And we're going to get a chance to unpack and dive into what I've seen really God at work in our body with planting a church in Shenandoah County. And Scott, I'm going to turn to you because we're going to be commissioning this church this coming weekend, where the church first service is going to be in a couple weeks, November 1st. That's exciting, but there is a history here. There is what we can almost call a birthing process of seeing the fruits of this new church. And I want to take us back a moment in time, years, months, more than that probably, or going back to how a seed was planted here for this church.
Yeah, just the other day I was actually looking at some old ministry plans from 2003, 2004, and there was mention of looking to what was coming next in the way of church planting or church expansion. At the time, the church was having just exponential growth at that time. And we were looking at what was going to be next. Where do we go with this? The building was kind of busting at the seams, and so what was going to be next? And as we fast forwarded, to 2013, I actually gathered together a group of men from all aspects of the church to pray about what a church plant would look like. And the elders were looking towards that. What were the next steps that were going to be a part of that?
And it's always been in the hearts and minds of our leaders and the elders here to say, okay, we want to prepare and deploy dependent disciples. And, looking back of that 2003, 2004, since that time, we launched Fellowship 3, we launched Fellowship Saturday, we launched the Hispanic Church,
which was our first church plant.
Yes. And now we're going into Shenandoah County. And so what did you see in the hearts of the leaders to say, why Shenandoah County? Like, where did that kind of stem from?
A lot of it was just the demographics of the body here at FBC Winchester. How many people were actually making that drive up 81? So we had over 100 families that over the course of 3-4 years had been making this drive to Winchester to be a part of this. So some of them as far away as Edinburgh, Newmarket, which is even a 45-minute.
That's a hike.
It is. So those folks were willing to make that drive to be a part of a Bible teaching, grace-filled church. But their neighbors were not.
So when you say that, their neighbors were not. So we have plenty of people who are driving and making that trip, and they're committed and they appreciate what FBC has to offer. But a neighbor who might not know Christ, might be willing to attempt a church, is not willing to drive that 30, 45 minutes.
Yeah, that invitation comes to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
When you say, hey, would you like to come to church with us this Sunday? It's a 45-minute drive away.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a lot of other things I could do in that time. So they were willing to make the drive, but their neighbors were not. So being missionally minded, instead of calling those folks from Shenandoah County to continue to come to us, we were planning on going to them. Yeah,
and you mentioned, looking people in Shenandoah County or really anywhere are looking for a Bible teaching church. And Don, I'll turn your way because that's definitely your heart and your passion of teaching, expositing the Bible. Tell us, how do you play into this factor here? Like, what did you see behind the scenes of pastoral staff meetings and the workings of knowing that this is happening? What has led you to this point?
Well, we, of course, all of us on staff and pastoral staff particularly, were aware of the initiatives and the meetings that were taking place with people from Shenandoah County. And then, so I was aware of it, and we certainly behind it, and Scott was certainly much more directly involved, as was Mark Carey, and meeting with the people, helping them to work through some things on biblical basis for church and et cetera, a number of different topics. But as I was personally just continuing in my own responsibilities here with biblical education, COVID hit, and the biblical education, in terms of our learning center up on the second floor, came to a screeching halt.
Right.
And it's still recovering. The future is still a little bit unknown, but anyway, it was during that time that Mark Carey and John Van Drunen approached me and asked if I would be interested in being a part of the church plant by being a teaching pastor and basically doing two things, teaching from the pulpit and helping to develop leaders, future leaders for the church. So that's how everything transpired. And so now engaged in it fully.
So now your role here will continue to be biblical education?
Yes.
And campus pastor? Like how do you define your role of being at Shenandoah?
The elders outlined a new job description for me, gave me percentages, which are always approximate, of the time involvement of where each component will be. So yes, I still will oversee biblical education here. I won't be here to teach on Sunday mornings,
right.
But I will be working with teacher development and recruiting and helping to develop the curriculum or the schedule but also we live in Woodstock now. Patty and I sold our home here in Winchester, and the Lord provided us a very appropriate and nice place to stay. It fits us perfectly, and especially for this kind of ministry.
That's
so
great.
We live there.
So really, I mean, to be in amongst the people, to pastor them, living there is obviously probably key, paramount to be able to minister. And
yeah, it is. It certainly makes you much more of a part of things, especially in their eyes. I mean, I could commute there. I have to commute here. Yeah. The commute is either way, but by the fact of living there, it gives them more of a sense of your involvement and presence and commitment.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's great. And so we're going to be commissioning this church launch this coming weekend in our corporate gathering services, and it's something it's neat to see how God has brought up not just you guys of being pastors and leaders, but the people who are going to be involved, and seeing the connection. We've been talking about prioritizing the body, and that is people doing the work of the ministry. So there is a handful of people, and Scott, you can probably speak to this, who are plugged in right now and committed to this church. Kind of share what you've been seeing in the hearts of people along the way.
So we have 5 launch teams that are part of this core group of people, and those 5 launch teams are the prayer team, there's the worship team, there's kid ministry, logistics, and the welcome and hospitality team. So those 5 teams are all super busy right now. Very, very busy preparing for this November 1st launch. So those folks, we've asked them to kind of where their gift mix is to serve in that area, and we've asked them to do that for a year as kind of a, we know we need a good solid team for a year, and that may morph into them being part of a continual ministry team, and we think that will probably happen with most of them. But we're seeing folks step up and spending for some of them an enormous amount of time, especially as we're getting things up off the ground. It's kind of this Herculean effort at the beginning to get things going. Yeah,
and I also heard rumblings of kind of preliminary preview services. How many of those have you had, and why even do something that isn't the real thing yet?
Yeah. Well, they're very much the real thing. They are preview services. They're just as real as they can be. We do, a complete service. It's not like Sunday morning light, but it's a complete service, and we do that to practice, really, to give everybody an opportunity to kind of figure out how the sound works and how greeting works and how welcoming people works and what it looks like to be praying for that event to occur. And it allows them a space to invite folks. Those core leaders are inviting people from the community, their friends, neighbors, co-workers, to say, hey, we're giving this a try. And we're just doing it this Sunday, and thought you might like to come. And
if you ever listened to some of the interviews we did leading up to the 40th anniversary celebration, you heard stories of what early days of a church were like, and how invested people were. I mean, and inviting people to lunch and cleaning toilets, and just anybody who can just be in children's ministry because otherwise it's not going to get done. You really kind of are already seeing the people being invested from that standpoint of owning it, which is it's exciting to be able to allow people to say, this is my church.
Yeah, and ownership is a key element. It is it's not just a place for them to come and to plug into and to drop their kids off at kids ministry or their teen off at youth ministry. They are part of that ministry. Yeah, so it's
not just come to church just to be served, but to serve.
Yeah, they can't come to the church thinking that I'm just going to sit back and watch.
Right. All in.
Yeah, there are no sideline players.
Yeah. So Don, I'll turn to you and just give us a rundown of what a typical worship service will look like. And as you're kind of overseeing that and teaching, what would you anticipate these next several weeks and months to come if you came to attend a Shenandoah County church?
Yeah. Our preview services, I think, pretty much set a course for how things will be. That doesn't mean there won't be some wiggle room and changes and creative ways of doing things differently from time to time, but we have a worship team, and we have gifted instrumentalists and vocalists who are leading the congregation in singing and worship. It's very God-centered. The 2 services we've had so far, I really didn't have anything to do with planning them, and yet they incorporated scripture, incorporated prayer, spoke about the lyrics of the song and what they mean, and helped direct and guide people's attention to the throne of Christ. So I think if people come and visit us, they're, let's say from FBC, they're going to see some similarities of what we do here. And then, of course, we have the teaching time, and we have some prayer time. We'll be having the Lord's table. So in that respect, it's not going to be a whole lot different than what we experience here.
Now, some might ask, are you going to be intentionally following the same sermon path that Mark Carey does here and what we do on our campus, or are you going to be doing your own thing?
Yeah, we'll be doing our own thing,
okay.
And certainly, I know, for instance, I'll be keeping in contact with what's happening here and trying to keep up and follow the sermons that are given here. But yeah, we'll be doing our own series. In fact, we'll start right from the start. We're going to jump into a series on November 1st when we have our first service.
Yeah. Good. And I think that's important. That'll kind of set a tone for being your own church, having this unique kind of characteristics. I know we've talked before kind of what a biblical model of a church is like. How do you envision this particular church plant really being a part of the overall umbrella of FBC, when it comes to elders and oversight and leadership and supporting the church?
Sure. Well, I'll give an analogy. All of us here are parents. When our children were born, we aided them a great deal. And yet as they grew, there were things that they were able to now do more on their own. And eventually they go off totally on their own. And that's what is actually taking place now. Church is being birthed, but yet FBC Winchester is having a significant contribution in helping things get started. They've assisted financially, of course, in the building, but they are also helping in training in terms of some of the pastoral staff here, helping them to get started in various aspects of ministry, whether it's worship or children or missions, those types of things. And that will be fairly present for a bit, but that's going to fade, or little by little, I shouldn't say fade, but it's going to be a little more released over time until the church becomes autonomous and is able to function under some qualified elders.
So, I mean, the mission statement, prepare and deploy dependent disciples, it goes beyond that. The core values that we have here, all of that really falls in play as part of the same kind of ministry plan, if you want to call it that.
Right, and even policies right now, we're just basically following the same that have already been established here. Now, if there's what the future holds, if there's any additional ones or any kind of revisions or whatever, I have no idea how that's going to come out. But at least right now, we are under the oversight of the elders here at FBC Winchester, and we will be moving forward. And just like that analogy I mentioned, I think over time, that's what will be taking place.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys are going to be in the trenches, really just, again, birthing this church, birthing all the different ministries. And I mentioned these 4 Ps that our elders have kind of laid out, just kind of the future of FBC, but I'll reiterate them. Prepare new leaders, participate in disciple making, pass the torch, and prioritize the body. That really sums up, I think, what is going to be happening in Shenandoah County. Talk to me about kind of these leaders that you're looking to prepare and to deploy and launch into the ministry. What kind of stories do you guys have of God moments working in the hearts of people in Shenandoah County right now?
So for the welcome and hospitality team, right off the bat, there was a young lady at our very first preview service who was very pregnant. She was within a week or so of having a baby, and she came to the service with her husband and 4-year-old, and enjoyed the service, told people she enjoyed the service. She had been invited by one of the other folks who were on the welcome team there. But when she had this baby, the welcome team decided that they were going to provide meals for her for the next couple of weeks. Here was somebody that most of them didn't know.
Yeah.
In fact, there was only one connection, the original inviter to her. But they were more than willing to step out and to bring meals and to care for this family in a way that, as we find out later, this family had never experienced that level of care ever before. So, it gives them ample opportunity to speak the truths of the gospel into their lives. Because of that open door.
Yeah, that's neat. And again, your heart is kind of this local outreach, not just being inward focused, but to be outward focused. And part of what we would hope and desire is that it's not just taking people from FBC congregation and then just transplanting them somewhere else, but it's allowing those people to invite their friends and to reach out into the Shenandoah community to where that can be an impact. I find that to be just refreshing in a way, to be able to reach outside of our own walls and be a light for Christ. Don, do you have any kind of stories of kind of where you see God working in the hearts of people?
Yeah. Soon after Patty and I moved to Woodstock, we invited any men of the church to come to our home on Saturday mornings. We served a light breakfast and sat around our living area and began looking into a book on biblical eldership. It's not only something to study for possible elders or emerging elders, but it's also just establishing the functioning and the polity of a church from a biblical basis. And the men have been really open about revisiting that. All of them, or most of them, come from churches and experience that they've had in various places, various states, and everybody comes together from different experiences, how their churches function, etc. But we're looking into the scriptures. How is this church going to function, and what is the biblical basis for how it functions? And the men have been very open to that.
That's helpful. And again, you're living in Woodstock. They're there close by.
Yeah. You
get a chance to interact with some farm boys while you're down there too.
Well,
going back to your roots.
Yeah, there'll be people walking into church with their boots on, I'm sure. So yeah, it's fun to be in a rural area.
Yeah,
and
and you have a history of kind of small church pastoring.
Yeah, Mark Carey has often shared his experience in Butte, Nebraska. He went there right after seminary for 9 years before coming here to FBC. Mine was longer in the Midwest. I had 3 pastorates, Kansas, Iowa, and North Dakota. All of them were smaller churches and rural, made up mainly of people that worked the land and the cattle.
Yeah.
So anyway, being back in a rural area and that mindset is not foreign to me. So it's actually been enjoyable.
Yeah.
So
that's neat to see God work to put all the pieces together, even in these final moments, to have you be there. Scott, tell us about the building. I mean, where is this place? If I live in Shenandoah County, where am I going to go on November 1st?
Yeah, so it's right on Main Street, or right off of Main Street in Woodstock. It's 133 Benchoff Drive. And for those not familiar with that area, it's right next door to the Military Academy. If you're familiar with Main Street, Woodstock, the Military Academy has their athletic field right on Main Street, and this building sits right behind it. So you can see it from Main Street there in Woodstock. You have to kind of drive around the athletic field to get there, but it's right in the center of town. That's
great. I mean, you can't get a better location than that, and I mean, you have to do a little bit of renovations. I mean, it's a building, right? It was a shell, and now it's going to be a gathering place for a church.
A portion of it was just raw warehouse space. So it's in the midst of being transformed. There's painting going on even as we speak. So,
well, paint a picture of the future for us. What can we be praying for? If I'm listening and watching this, and I'm like, well, I'm going to still go to the Winchester campus, but I want to stay connected. What things can we be praying for? We're going to be, again, commissioning this service, this church, this coming weekend's church services here in FBC Winchester. What can our congregation really kind of be praying for, and how can they stay connected?
During that commissioning service, everybody's going to get a little bookmark. And that bookmark is going to give them some prayer prompts. And on the back of the bookmark, it's actually going to challenge each individual. So, how are we here still in Winchester, Frederick County? How are we reaching our neighbors with Christ? And how are we being the missionaries that God has called us to be? But the very first prayer prompt is having a real zeal for the Lord. As we gather folks in Shenandoah County, sure, there's a lot of activity going on, but is that activity born out of just a feel of, oh, this is what I'm called to do, or is it because of their immense zeal for God? And I think if it's that latter, if they are having such a zeal for the Lord that everything else is born out of that, everything else kind of flows out of that bucket of their love of the Lord. Yeah.
Don, how do you see the people here at Winchester kind of connecting and praying for you guys?
Well, we've talked about Bible teaching and the purpose of this church and Bible teaching, the significant role that has. We must always guard ourselves, however, that a strong Bible teaching church can become lethargic, because it's just like when you eat a lot but you don't exercise. And right now the people are exercising very well, and praying that would continue. That as we teach the Word, that they'd be equipped to continue to reach out to the community, utilizing their spiritual gift within the body, but also being missional in their perspective and in their lives, their neighborhoods, whatever context God has put them in. So that would be the prayer. A prayer that would be the same for FBC Winchester.
Right.
So,
I mean, maybe it can be an encouragement to us here in Winchester to watch and hear and see the stories of how the people are being engaged and doing the work of the ministry to be able to then reach out. I mean, starting a church is a big thing. This is not a light task, and
I have personally found and been realizing after being here 16 years how much I was taking for granted that's already in place. That I don't have, it's just established, rooted, and now you go to a new church and who's going to unlock the door? Who's going to turn the lights on? Who's who's going to do this and that? And so we're working our way through those things.
It's neat to see. And again, it's something that this is not just a launch and then forget about kind of church. This is going to be a staying connected here with our body. More than just you guys, other pastoral staff have already been heavily involved in whether it be worship or children's ministry and youth and just the oversight. So it's definitely exciting to see. And what kind of final summary points would you guys have beyond just prayer? How else, is there anything else that we can do to support these people down there and their involvement?
And for the people here at FBC Winchester, Woodstock can feel far removed. It can feel, it's only a 30-minute drive, but sometimes that it might as well be on the other side of the world. So just the thought that, it still exists and it's still there. Those people are still meeting, to be continually praying for them, and to check into their website once in a while, which is fbcshenandoah.org.
Has its own website.
All
right.
So you can kind of keep up with what's going on down there as well. It gives you a better opportunity to pray directly for what's going on.
Yeah, good. Well, again, I'm excited just to watch and participate, and if I get a chance to get down there, I'm excited to meet up with everybody. And we keep saying these people, but this is a group of people who have been connected for a while and have a common bond of living in the same county together. Now they're going to have a church in their building together and the opportunity to reach out into their community and grow together as a spiritual community. And that's exciting. And I'm excited just to hear stories of what God does with bringing people to know Him more and hopefully you can hear some real life impact testimonies. So thank you guys for being a part of it. This is just an exciting time in the life of our church. And again, we talked about this birthing process. The fruits are about ready to be made known and see what God is going to do. So November 1st is the first weekend. And Don, you have a sermon prepped yet? Ready to go?
Working on it. Yeah, working on it. So, 10 o'clock. We'll have, of course, just the one service. But 10 a.m., November 1.
That's excellent. Well, thank you guys for being a part of this podcast once again.
Thank you.
I really, I see God working, and it's exciting to see how, this prioritizing the body concept is really being played out into action here with Shenandoah County. And for all of you guys watching and listening at home, continue to stay connected. Scott mentioned their website, fbcshenandoah.org. We have our own website, fbcva.life. And if you hit /podcast, that'll take you to all the different links to where podcasts are and show notes, and stay connected. You can engage with us. If you want to be connected with the Shenandoah County Church, contact either Don or Scott, call the church office, email, let us know, because we would want you to be engaged and plugged in. So once again, thanks for watching and listening. And until we really chat again, let Christ be the focus of your life each and every day.